Welcome to Saturday Night Stories, scary stories for adults and brave teens. I'm Megan from the Public Library of Youngstown and Mahoning County, and tonight our selection is Lullaby and A Night of Terrors, two short stories from the book, even more short and shivery, 30 Spine-Tingling Tales by Robert D. Sansucci. This book is available to borrow through our library's catalog. We'll begin with Lullaby. The setting is British Isles, England. Enjoy! Colonel Ewart was a man who detested riding trains and omnibuses, primarily because he was unhappy sharing space with strangers. Strangers wanted to chat, to ask rude questions, to tell him things that he hadn't the least desire to hear. When business required him to make a trip, he would plan roundabout routes on unpopular trains in the hope that they would be reasonably empty. He didn't mind the extra time, as long as he could sit and read his paper without interruption. Having plotted out such a rail trip from Carlisle to London, the old soldier congratulated himself when the porter showed him to an empty compartment. His luggage stowed, the colonel happily unfolded his newspaper and settled in for a good read. But he kept one eye anxiously on the door, for fear some late-arriving passenger would intrude. With relief, he heard the whistle blow and felt the train moving out of Carlisle station. The warmth of the day and the rocking of the train soon lulled the colonel to sleep. He awoke with a start as the newspaper slid from his lap, hitting the floor with a thump. As he bent to pick it up, he found, to his annoyance, that he was no longer alone. On the seat opposite sat a woman. She seemed well dressed, though her clothes were a bit old-fashioned. Her face was heavily veiled, and she had a shawl draped over her shoulders, which fell down across her forearms. She seemed not to notice him at all. Glancing at his watch, the colonel saw that he had slept for almost an hour. He had been so deeply asleep, he had not even noticed the train stopping to pick up this passenger. He nodded to the lady politely, then returned to his paper. The lady did not nod back, or even turn her head toward him. She just sat, hunched forward, looking down. Then she began to rock gently, her arms and the draped shawl hiding what she was cradling. Softly, she crooned a lullaby. Hush, hush, my sweet, my dearest, my love. Hush, hush, my treasure, my angel, my dove. She was traveling with an infant, the colonel decided. She just kept singing the same bit of lullaby over and over, rocking ever so slightly. Something about her made him uneasy. At last, he decided that he must speak to her. The silence between them had become oppressive. "Madam," he began. She did not look up. "Madam?" he repeated, edging forward a bit. She made no direct reply, but stopped her humming. Then she turned toward him, still hiding what lay in her arms. Through the veil, the colonel could see a pale face and eyes that looked almost hostile. Now she glanced down at her lap and hugged the unseen bundle protectively. She glared across at him with the fierceness of a she-lion protecting a cub. Astonished, he sat back and buried his face in his newspaper. From across the compartment came the monotonous lullaby. Finally, Colonel Ewart found himself overwhelmed with curiosity about the unseen infant she was hugging so jealously. Setting his paper aside, he stood up and peered across at the woman, determined to get at least a glimpse of the child. At that moment, 3 things happened. The woman's mouth opened in a scream of soundless horror. Her arms rose to defend what lay on her lap, and a deafening crash shook the train, throwing the colonel to the floor. For a few minutes he lay still, collecting his thoughts and assuring himself that he was merely bruised. His luggage had spilled from the overhead rack and lay pell-mell. Concerned for the woman and her infant, Colonel Ewart turned to check on them. But they were gone, and the bench was empty. He heard shouts from outside the stopped train and assumed that the woman had fled the compartment in fear right after the impact. But the train had not derailed, and Colonel Ewart began to put his luggage in order. When he asked a conductor what had happened, the conductor said there had been a collision with a van of some sort. The damage was minor, and injuries were few. When the colonel asked about the woman, the conductor gave him a curious look. "I passed your compartment shortly before the accident, and you were alone," the conductor said. "Nonsense!" claimed the old soldier. "I most certainly didn't imagine the woman and her baby." "A baby, sir?" said the conductor, clearly more confused. "Well, I didn't actually see a baby. I was just about to get a peek at it when the crash came. But she was certainly singing a lullaby to something." The conductor's face went quite pale. "She's come back then," he said in a hushed voice. "What do you mean? Does she travel on this train often?" asked Colonel Ewart. "Only when there's going to be a mishap. She's a ghost, you see," the conductor said. Before the colonel could respond, the man continued. "Years ago, some newlyweds were traveling to London for their honeymoon on this train. They had this compartment to themselves, but we could pretty well guess what happened next." "Well," said Colonel Ewart, "what happened next?" "The young man must have been leaning out the window when the train was at full steam. Another train went by, going the other direction. There must have been a spike or sharp wire or something else sticking out. It cut his head clean off, sir." Colonel Ewart suddenly felt queasy. The conductor found the woman rocking and singing to the headless body. She pulled the shoulders off the floor into her lap. A terrible sight she was, gone mad as a hatter. When they came to take her away, she put up a fight. Said she had to go back and find her husband's head. I heard she died too, soon after." "Did they ever find his head?" Colonel Ewart asked. "Never did," said the conductor. Remembering the bundle cradled in his strange companion's lap, the old soldier said with a shudder, "I think the poor soul has somehow found what was lost all those years ago." The end. Next up is A Night of Terrors, U.S. Urban Folklore. Enjoy. "Are you sure you'll be all right?" Linda asked the young woman sitting against mounded pillows on the bed. "I'll be fine," Mary Jo said. "I know you don't want to miss Jack's frat party later." She shifted slightly in the bed. "I'm going to be so glad to get rid of this flu." "It seems like a lousy way to spend Christmas," said Linda. "Everyone else has gone home, and now I'm leaving you all alone." "You'll only be gone a few hours," answered Mary Jo. She dropped her hand beside the bed. From underneath, his favorite hideaway, her dog's muzzle poked out. His pink tongue licked her hand affectionately. "And I've got Jeffy to guard me," Mary Jo said. Linda walked to the window. The big house, which the two of them shared with 4 other college sophomores, was a mile west of the little college town. The nearest house was dark and silent. The Johnsons, retired teachers, had left to visit family in Florida. "I'll heat up something for dinner," said Linda. "Then I'm going to take a hot bath and get ready for tonight." "Thanks," Mary Jo said. As she picked up one of the magazines stacked beside her pillow, she lowered her hand again. Jeffy, her dog, obligingly licked it. It gave Mary Jo a good feeling to know that the dog would be around when Linda was gone. Mary Jo fell asleep, but she awoke with a start. Someone was knocking loudly on the front door. It was dark outside. She felt feverish. Groggy, she looked at the clock. 6:53 p.m. Louder knocking. Under the bed, Jeffrey growled. More knocking. "Give it a rest," Mary Jo muttered, but her mouth was dry and her voice was papery. She could barely hear herself. "All right already," yelled Linda from her bedroom across the hall. As she passed Mary Jo's door, she said, "Now Jack told me he'd come by early because of the snow, but he's an hour early." As the pounding started again, Linda shouted, "Wait a minute, Jack, I'm coming down." Linda darted back into Mary Jo's bedroom for her coat and fleece-lined gloves. "Are you sure you're going to be okay?" she asked. Mary Jo nodded. Suddenly, Jeffy shot out from under the bed and charged downstairs, baying like the hound of the Baskervilles. "Great," said Linda. "I finally get a decent date and you sick your dog on him." "I'll get Jeffy," said Mary Jo. She started to get up, but her temples and the back of her neck began to throb, and she felt a rush of dizziness and weakness. "I'll handle Jeffy," said Linda. "You just stay put. I'll see you in a couple of hours." She followed Jeffy downstairs, yelling, "Jeffy, you scare off my date and you're toast." At the front door, Jeffy was barking so loudly that Mary Jo could no longer hear Linda, who must have opened the door. Mary Jo seemed to hear Jack's voice shouting. Jeffy started going crazy, but the dog never did like Jack. Her head aching enough to split, Mary Jo sank back into the pillows. She was sure that Linda would be on her case because of Jeffy. Feeling as rotten as she did, Mary Jo dreaded the idea of a confrontation later. But the commotion downstairs stopped, as though sliced off. "Thank you all very much," she whispered, and she heard the front door slam. "Bye, kids. Have fun," she murmured. "I won't wait up." She started to shiver. Feeling as though it was a monumental effort, she reached out and snapped off the bedside lamp. Then she burrowed as deep into the bedclothes as she could. But she felt chilled and more tired than ever. Vaguely, she wondered, where's Jeffy? She hoped he wasn't making a mess. "I'll sort everything out later," she promised herself as she drifted off to sleep. In her feverish sleep, Mary Jo sensed, more than she heard, Jeffy come into the bedroom. He was panting. She dreaded to think what he'd been up to. Probably running up and down and jumping on the furniture. "Get under the bed, Jeffy," she commanded. "Be good and give me a kiss," she said, reaching down to him. He obediently licked her hand. "Good boy," she said, and she drifted back to sleep. The phone on the nightstand woke her. Jack pounding on the door, barking Jeffy, yelling Linda, ringing phone. To a sick and exhausted Mary Jo, it seemed like a conspiracy to make noise and wake her up. "Go away," she ordered the phone as it jingled again. She hated the sound of the phone's bell in this rented house. She hated whoever was calling. She wanted only silence and sleep. Maybe she could curl up with Jeffy under the bed and wish the whole world away. But the phone continued to ring. Exasperated, she plucked the receiver from its cradle, dragged it under the covers, and asked, "Who is it?" "Linda?" a man's voice asked. She knew the voice. Almost. I'm Mary Jo. Linda's gone. Gone? Gone where? The voice was upset. Mary Jo, this is Jack. You sound funny. What's going on? I'm sick, she said, but Linda went with you. What time is it anyway? It's after 9, he said. I hit a patch of black ice and spun into a ditch on my way there. I finally got a tow, but now I can't get there because of the roadblocks. What roadblocks? You're not making any sense, Jack. The police have cordoned off the area, Jack said in a rush. There was a jailbreak early today. 3 criminally insane lifers got out. A car they stole was found around here, so the police are combing the area. I can't get through, but where's Linda? Did she get tired of waiting for me and drive herself in? Nothing seemed to make any sense to Mary Jo. I heard her go out, she said. I heard you. I thought I heard you. I'm sure it was a man's voice downstairs. And Jeffy was barking a lot. Something's wrong, Jack said. The fear in his voice chilled Mary Jo more than the flu. Her teeth began to chatter. There was a crash from downstairs. Something heavy and metal went over, and there was a sound of shattering glass. She expected Jeffy to go crazy, but she heard him retreat farther under the bed. What awful thing downstairs unnerved him to do so? Mary Jo, talk to me, Jack was shouting into the phone. What is going on? There's someone downstairs, she whispered. Call the police. Can you get out of there? He asked. Can you lock yourself in? Those escapees are apparently really whacked out. Help me, Jack, please. I'm scared. She could hear Jack shouting to someone in the background. She caught the words police and emergency. Then there was another crash downstairs. The noise spilled into the phone from the extension phone below. Someone had pulled or knocked the downstairs receiver off the hook. A torrent of gasping, gurgling sounds came from the earpiece. Jack heard it too. What's that? Who's on the line? Mary Jo, the police are on the way. Get out! Hide! Now! Then his voice was drowned out by a horrible moaning. Mary Jo slammed down the receiver to shut off the ghastly sound. Realizing that she had just cut herself off from Jack too, she picked up the phone. It buzzed, and a recorded voice advised her that the receiver was off the hook. Then the phone gave us a series of shrill electronic pulses. She hung up, afraid that the sound would attract the attention of whoever was downstairs. Dizzy, unsteady, she crossed to the door and peered toward the top of the stairs. She thought she saw a shadow moving. Or was it her fevered imagination? At that moment, the power failed and the hall lights went out. As quietly as possible, Mary Jo closed and locked the door. The door was sturdy, but she doubted it could hold out long against someone trying to break in. She went to the window, but the sheer drop down to the burlap-covered rose bushes made escape impossible. She looked around for something to use to defend herself. 2 heavy ceramic bookends to throw would be her first line of defense. She also grabbed a metal letter opener. The silence was more frightening than any noise. The room had grown freezing. She retreated to the bed, wrapping the blankets around her. Impulsively, she dropped her hand down. After a moment, Jeffy licked it. Jeffy, her final defense. Or was he too coward to help at all? Minutes passed. Then she heard a scratching and gasping out in the hall. Someone was making his painful way toward her closed bedroom door. She pressed her hands to her mouth to bottle up her scream she felt building up inside. Whoever was out there had reached the door. Nails scratched the lower panels. In the distance, she heard the wail of police sirens. Please hurry, she thought. More scraping at the door. She reached for Jeffy, felt her hand licked again. Then there was a banging on the front door, the sound of splintering wood, heavy footsteps on the stairs, shouts in the hallway, Jack's voice. Without thinking, Mary Jo pulled open the door. But Linda was huddled on the hall floor while Jack and several police officers bent over her. She was badly injured, but still alive. It was Linda, Mary Jo gasped. She was hurt. She was trying to get in, and I wouldn't let her. I was afraid, she began to cry. Jack pulled her aside and put his arm around her. Anxious officers questioned her, while others began to search the house and the grounds. An ambulance was on the way. Someone had attacked Linda. He must have fled again into the night, or he might be hiding. Linda was taken downstairs, and Mary Jo followed shakily. The house was filled with bobbing flashlight beams. Every corner was being searched. Behind the couch, one of the officers discovered a furry shape matted with blood. They tried to keep her from looking, but Mary Jo looked anyway. "Jeffy," she cried, "but it can't be him. He's been up in my room this entire time, under my bed. So scared he couldn't make a sound. He just kept licking my hand." The officer drew his gun and waved his fellow officers toward the stairs. "Humans can lick too," he said. That's all the time we have for tonight. We hope that you have enjoyed Saturday Night Scares. We'll be back next week at 8:30 for another horror story. Join us again, if you dare.